Lucia Carl's teacher here with our weekly episode. Today it will be on the development. Development can be intended in many ways. I've written something because I can go on my reasoning and forget something important. I will put some pages from the trainer, coach and experts in physical development, especially for baseball, that is Eric Cressy, and something about Michael Boyle that, as you know, I sometimes cite because he's a huge, great name into training field and especially functional training, meaning this great wave into training according to how our anatomy, biology and biomechanics are. That has become very huge and very important, not only from Gray Cook, but for the development of more refined and more specific logics of training and getting specific in how, when, why of the training, of the consequences, and development is something that comes into development of what? What it is. Can we say it is the sum of the adaptations, the internal epigenetics, the, how can I say, growth factors that have some aging-related processes quite specific from an embryological point of view, all the development before birth. And in one of my posters at Philadelphia, I will put one very important thing in my reasoning and in my, how can I say, connect the dots together of this specific complex biomechanics that we have in sync that intertwines with other functions as something, to me, into my reasoning and training practice pretty relevant from a very confused now point of view of how see things in biomechanics. Also after birth, as we said in the episode on the larynx, we said what? The larynx develops into shape and position also, and this is something that if you are not a professional, you are not an expert, you don't realize very often that the larynx is not always in the same position. See the episode related to see the times of this development. Also, do you talk of development or regeneration, healing, subsequent development of something that was underdeveloped? Why I make those differences? Because it will take a different strategy. And especially, do we have something to heal or do we don't? What? Where? At what age? At what phase of training, career, expression? Because if you are in the learning phase, can be really different than when you are into the first part of the career in which you are trying to be quietly reliable with always the same sound and to get constant into your outcoming. Can be quite different if you want to change a phase of career that you feel needs a new starting point. So, where? What do you want to do? Third, the goal of this development. More extension, more power, more speed, more phrase, more equality into the sound, a different timbre. You want to not have the constant limitation from some flows. And again, do you have to generate or regenerate something? Or do you have to develop something that wasn't developed? Or do you have to learn new patterns that includes the avoidance of some bad things that you are doing? From a structural point of view, does the development stop with the growth phases, meaning after puberty? No, because there is the ossification, also called calcification process, that starts something around 27, 28 years. You are into the career and you feel that you are not with your capacities, with your skills, with your voice structurally where it should be too. And I will make next week will be on the development again, but with an analysis of George Michael voice and Freddie Mercury voice. George Michael voice into the first phases with the Wham, and what he changed there, to me it was a developmental phase, to get to become a soloist. And you can hear that yet in the last concerts with the Wham, when they yet decided that they were not going again together. And I will analyze with Freddie Mercury, because he took in some sort the part of Freddie Mercury, meaning that he changed his vocal positions. And I will analyze what are the vocal positions from my point of view. But that was a developmental strategy. What can we develop when we are yet chronologically and hormonally developed? Can we develop something? What said science? Neil Overto's guy is revolutionizing the ideas of development of what? Of tendons and ligaments, by using positions in which he will target some functions of the muscles, because those functions of the muscle will have an effect on short term, on immediate term, no, on medium and long term. And this again, it will be one entire episode on this article that I cite again because it's very complete and very important, of what we can do now, but it's not so relevantly and mainstreamly and commonly known as path to develop for our medium long-term strategy. When, for example, we are yet not completely developed as preteen singers, how must be the development? Look at this little video I made with the page developmental. If you look for it into Eric Cressy website, you will see that he's really great material. Listen and learn from him, because it is the same logic with which we develop the voice, because as you can understand it, his body functions, so sometimes we have the same logic into. Okay, so start learning from him, because you will see something in common, much more than you think. When you don't know, you think sometimes a bit naively that development is linear. And as you see, and as I always say, no, there are many elements into, and as I said last week, it is an organized, messy process. Messy doesn't mean whatever. It's precise. We can guide it. We can, how can I say, determine it how, and there I have to look better here because I forgot how it's said. Yeah. Do we have to guide it or to supervise it? Depend on the phase, depend on the task, depend on what we are working precisely. Because what we said last time, that random practice is a set environment, meaning strategically set, with some precise boundaries according to level, phase, because we must not have exactly the same environment all the time, but we can cyclically change environments. 2 days a week a certain kind, 1 day a week another kind. That can be a blocked practice, and other 2 days a week another kind again. And it is strategically well thought in what we know of the logic of developments and phases of developments, and specifics of the person or specifics of the goal and of the style that we want to obtain. And we are becoming pretty smart in that. And traditional practices, as bel canto was really amazingly smart in that. Then we have, as I say always, adapt to contemporary use of music and of voice. But we have some root fundamentals there that I don't see myself abandoning them, because they're so smart and so correct that we maintain them, we transform them, but we cherish, we maintain, and we honor still this great invention and this great craft. Why I say to guide or to supervise? Because when we guide, we actively block more things than when we supervise. So sometimes we absolutely have to guide when we want to overimpose bad habits. We have to always guide. No. To guide enough to clear for the system and to explicit for the system an alternative to the bad habit and the bad pattern. And then, when possible, get back to the random practice that is a supervised, more complex environment in which we are going to develop what? The elements of the development. What are those elements? In my view, we can start thinking, or it can be useful to think and to see development as a sort of mosaic. Mosaic made of many pieces. When we think we are dysfunctional, usually we think of ourselves as one piece that we want to enlarge into its ability to get to take all the place, because we think that development is linear. When we think correctly, meaning as a science studies, practices and reality shows us to be more successful and more appropriate, we see that, as Ben Bruno says quite well, usually what we hate to do is what we need most. What we hate to do, the pieces of the mosaic that we don't cherish and that we overlook. The random practice is the one containing a hierarchy of this environment in which the pieces of the mosaic that are more important in that phase are put into as necessary. This also comes with the last week and the last week topic that was the epigenetics. You can also think that when you are not effective, you have activating an epigenetic that contains some functions that you want, but not all the functions of the environment that in which you're gonna operate. So the environment is you plus the outside plus the style, repertoire of your goal and of your point of arrival. So how can you get better? You create an environment in which the previous one is to reduction, is to find the solutions. So you have to start into solving from another genetic point of view, meaning epigenetic point of view. That's why when you start into the correct environment, into the correct practice, your ability in the first phase comes down for a moment, and then they get more complexes on a higher level of capacities and of crafts. Because you're putting more appropriate epigenetics into activation. So I think that simply you act taking away from latency, meaning stimulating the epigenetic that is correct for your goal, style, creativity, etc. That's why I think that when you start, you must be in a very good environment, meaning cherish how you start. Because if you start in a too poor environment, it is possible that you are going to select a too reductionist epigenetic that will stunt you. And I think that this is part of the stunt of the young talents when over-specialized too soon. They don't develop the pieces of the mosaic that in that moment looks like they are not that important, but we know that for successive and, how can I say, evolutive and all lifelong and lifespan long of what you are going to do, development, they are the appropriate. And now the recap.